Hey guys, Paradise here. So we're going to be looking at my Wyvern Ignition builds, and I actually have two of them to show to you guys. So the first one that we're going to look at is a focus variety of these two builds. They're very similar, but one has focus and one has handicraft, and I explain the positive and negative of both of these different perks and which one you may want to go for. But I will say they're both definitely really good and they both really work for the Wyvern Ignition Greatsword. So first up we can look at the armor. It has the Dragon King Eye Patch Alpha, the Damascus Mail Beta, the Kaiser Vambraces Beta, Nagante Coil Beta, and the Gyros Greaves Beta with the Unscathed Charm 2, and I prefer to run this with an Affinity Booster and also a Vitality Mantle, but you can swap the Vitality Mantle to an Evade Mantle, or perhaps a Fireproof Mantle or a Thunderproof Mantle depending on if you're fighting certain Elder Dragons. The Affinity Booster is quite important in this build as it only has 60% critical chance when you're hitting a weak point, and for those sleep hits where that critical hit damage really matters, you definitely want to be using an Affinity Booster. So the skills on this build are Attack Boost level 4, that is the sweet spot for attack boost where you get the extra 5% affinity as well as the raw damage. Critical Eye level 3, these can be replaced with attack boost decorations for more raw damage, but since I only have 2, Critical Eye is the second best and gives 10% affinity. Weakness Exploit level 3, a must have for all damage builds. Focus level 3, the 20% charge reduction. Again, this build focuses around using focus, but whether or not you think it's worth it is up to you and may decide if you want to use the next build that I have. It also has Peak Performance level 3 and must have for many builds that are revolving around doing higher damage numbers. A lot of people don't like Peak Performance on a Greatsword build due to the nature of tackling and taking some chip damage. I actually find that it isn't a problem and is up majority of the time. You can counteract this with a health augment on your Wyvern Ignition. I've experimented with both, with the health augment and the attack augment, and while the health augment does help the uptime of peak performance, it's not a huge loss if you choose not to go for it. Critical Boost level 2, it is a trade-off. You can choose to go Critical Boost level 3 or Peak Performance level 3. You have to pick between the two of them. I actually think that Peak Performance level 3 with the 10 raw damage is a bigger boost than 5% crit damage, but it's up to you what you go for. Maybe the maths will prove that that last level in crit boost is better than the last level in peak performance. And of course, non-element boost, a super important decoration that you must have for these non-elemental damage greatswords. So then there's the second variety of my Wyvern Ignition builds, this one using Handicraft as its focus. So it has the Dragon King Eye Patch Alpha, Brigade Suit Beta, that's the arena chest piece, is a bit of a pain to farm, the Kaiser Vambraces Beta, the Nagagante Coil Beta, the Death Stench Heal Beta, and the Unscathed Charm 2. Once again, Affinity Booster, a must-have for those sleep hits and maintaining your affinity at around 100%, and also the Vitality Mantle that you can swap out as needed. So this variety of build has Attack Boost level 4, the sweet spot once again with the affinity bonus, Crit Boost level 3, all the way to level 3 this time, needed for many DPS builds, Weakness Exploit level 3, once again a needed one for DPS builds, Peak Performance level 3, again you can counteract this with the health augment on your weapon. I personally don't think it's too big of a deal, but if you want to go that way and lose it out on a little bit of damage, Peak Performance is definitely worth it. Critical Eye level 2, these can be replaced with attack boost. Again, I only have the 2 attack boost charms, so I have to use the Critical Eye. Handicraft level 2. Handicraft level 2 is really good on the Wyvern Ignition. I actually find that the monster dies in most cases before you even need to sharpen. That is in both single player and in multiplayer. Each point in Handicraft supposedly gives 10 extra hits. Slower hitting weapons are much better with Handicraft because they hit slower and they use the same amount of sharpness per hit as the fast hitting weapons. So you don't need a protective polish, you don't want that with a greatsword. What you want is Handicraft, and 2 points for the Wyvern Ignition mean that you actually end up not ever having to sharpen as long as you're with a pretty decent team that is killing it relatively fast. The point in Divine Blessing comes from the Brigade Suit. Brigade Suit is used because it has those 2 level 2 decoration slots, making it one of the better, more customizable chess pieces in the game, and of course the non-element boost decoration that you definitely don't want to miss out on. Before we look at the weapon augments that you want to put on the actual Wyvern Ignition, here is a quick bonus build that you might want to use against Valhazak or Teostra or other creatures that have a damaging aura effect. It actually replaces the Peak Performance charm and also decoration with Resentment charm and the Resentment decoration, giving 3 points in Resentment, which means when you have that red recovery health, it gives you 15 raw damage, so you lose overall more DPS than if you had peak performance. However, because if you're fighting Valhazak with the Alufian or Teostra with the Fire Aura, you're not going to be getting that peak performance basically ever until your Vitality Mantle runs out, so over the course of the whole fight, Resentment results in higher damage. So then finally, if we look at the actual Wyvern Ignition Blade itself, you always want to do the first as an affinity augment to counteract that negative affinity on the weapon. Affinity plus 10% results in about 2.5% increased DPS overall, and if you have crit boost level 3, it results in 4% more DPS overall. It's one of the biggest damage augments that you can do. Do consider, if you are trying to get the single biggest damage number, you don't want to be putting affinity on your weapon, but in terms of DPS over the course of a fight, 10% affinity is better than the attack augment. For the second augment slot, what you want to be doing is either the attack augment or the health boost augment. With the health boost augment, you can keep your peak performance up a lot more, you can counteract that chip damage from tackling the creature's attacks. With the attack augment, you're going to be hitting a bit higher, it gives you plus 5 raw damage. But once again, if you're going for those biggest sleep hits, you may want to consider scratching both the health and attack and affinity augments altogether and going for 2 slot augments, giving you an extra level 2 slot, which could be the difference between level 2 and level 3 peak performance, which is plus 10 raw damage, or perhaps an extra 5% critical damage with crit boost. So if you are all focused on the sleep damage, you may want to go for slots. But in terms of overall DPS across the length of the whole fight, then affinity and attack will be the best augments to go for. So these have been my Wyvern Ignition Impact builds for the Greatsword. I got some help on stream with customizing some of these sets and making them a bit better, but I did actually throw these together majority myself. Let me know what you guys think of these builds in the comments if you can see a way to improve them. Make sure to check me out over on twitch.tv/Paradise Central. Make sure you also check out 269. We both stream almost every day, doing lots of Monster Hunter lately. Let me know in the comments if you want to see the rest of my builds. I've got so many more builds to show you guys. If you want to see them, let me know. Make sure you like and hit subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys next time.